It's early spring in the mountain forests of Garrett County, and the first splash of green colors the barren branches. A new cycle of life is beginning. The fierce eyes of a goshawk pierce the forest canopy, following a man's movements through the trees. Two babies are in the nest, and the mother goshawk is wary of this intruder. Suddenly, the forest rings with a fierce cry. But despite the bird's alarm, there is nothing for it to fear. The intruder is a wildlife ecologist with Maryland's Department of Natural Resources. His name is Dave Brinker, and he's just found the second known nesting pair of goshawks in the entire state.
Goshawks are listed as an endangered species in Maryland. We went through a period from probably about the 1920s or 30s until 1980 where we suspect there were no nesting goshawks in Maryland at all. We removed all their nesting habitats, so they disappeared.
But with the gradual return and growth of the forests in the western part of the state, goshawks may be coming back to Maryland. That's what Dave Brinker hopes.
I like walking in the woods, and this is a great way to spend your spring, you know, when everything's coming up new and green. And I like working on rare species, and here, this is probably, at least in my book, the rarest breeding bird in Maryland.
Brinker is now conducting research on the migratory patterns of these elusive forest-dwelling hawks. His job is to find out as much as he can about their movements throughout the year.
They're individuals, just like people. I think what I like is the boldness of this bird and the rareness that goes along with it.
Weeks later, Dave returns to the same nest site, this time with his assistant, Steve Huey.
Did you hear that off in the distance, Steve? A little while ago, I thought I might have heard one of them cacking.
Together, Dave and Steve will try to capture this new nesting pair and put satellite transmitters on their backs, as well as band the adult birds and their babies for identification purposes.
There he comes. There he comes.
It's dangerous work. Goshawks are known to be aggressive.
What makes a goshawk is the fact that it chases you through the woods. It's the only hawk that's going to come down through the canopy and literally try and hit you in the head. Got the poles. I put one set of nets in there.
It's early in the morning when Dave and Steve decide that they will try to capture the birds.
Can you push up the first line so we make sure we got it untangled?
The two men set up an elaborate system of nets around the nest. The lure is a great horned owl, a fierce enemy of the goshawk.
We put a mist net in between the goshawk's nest and the great horned owl. The goshawk dives at it, trying to drive the great horned owl away from its nestlings, and can't see the mist net, and we snag them in the mist net. You know how this works. You've done it before. You attract mama. We've never had a goshawk hit an owl. We've never had either the owl or the goshawk get injured in this.
To avoid alarming the goshawks, Dave leaves the area. Steve takes cover behind a makeshift hide. The long wait begins. But in less than an hour, the mother goshawk goes for the bait and is immediately snared in the net. Steve quickly jumps into action.
It's sort of like a game of bluff. All it wants to do is dive it and, you know, put a little bit of fear of mother goshawk into the owl, and in the process it runs into the mist net that it can't see.
One female northern goshawk wrapped and ready for pickup.
Back at base camp, Dave is encouraged.
Well, that's good. Maybe it won't take too long.
But the hours pass by, and the male goshawk proves elusive.
Steve, what's he up to now?
Still nothing. Every once in a while he'll fly around and make some noise, but he's just sitting up there watching us now.
Dave busies himself putting together the small satellite transmitters and fitting a harness onto the female.
What we've been doing is putting satellite transmitters on adult pairs as we find them here in Maryland. What goshawks do in the wintertime is basically unknown. Tail length is 264. The conservation end of managing goshawks or maintaining them depends upon us knowing what parts and what characteristics of the landscape they prefer. We'll see where this pair goes. And I suspect that, you know, they're not going to take off and go long distances.
Late that afternoon, the male goshawk makes his move.
We actually got him. And that was just a matter of luck because I managed to sprint up there. Okay.
Dave and Steve now work in earnest. With only a few hours left of daylight, Steve climbs 50 feet into the pine tree to get to the nest.
And get around all these branches.
Two nervous baby goshawks, still unable to fly, stare anxiously at this tree-climbing intruder.
Hello, guys. How you doing?
Steve removes the birds and sends them down to Dave.
Okay, one coming down.
Do you want out? Come on out.
Dave quickly bans the baby birds.
These young, if they make it to breeding population, will be somewhere in western Maryland, northern West Virginia in the high country, maybe southwest PA. You know, they won't go to Wisconsin to breed.
The birds are returned to their nest in less than half an hour.
The good thing of goshawks returning to Maryland is it demonstrates that our forests are becoming healthier, more diverse systems.
With the babies now safely in their nest, Dave releases the mother goshawk with a satellite transmitter on her back. She can now return to her young.
1, 2.
Mission accomplished. The male will be released the next day. Dave Brinker, a man who has made the woods his home for most of his life, will now track the movements of these rare birds through the forests of Maryland to learn more about their secrets.
I'm a guy with a passion for a big hawk that likes to chase you through the woods. Look at that. She's a good mother. Knows her duties, wants to do them. If there's a zen to it, it's just based on the fact that next spring you get to go back and find your pairs again and see who made it through the winter and who was replaced and how they're doing.